Friday evening promised to be quiet for John, a young American who decided to spend it at his parents' country house. The old house, surrounded by dense forest, always seemed like a place of solitude and rest to him. This time, he came alone to get away from the city's hustle and bustle. John settled on the old couch with a book when suddenly there was a loud knock at the door. It was already late, and he wasn't expecting any visitors. Warily approaching the door, he opened it but saw no one. Only the wind gently rustled the leaves on the porch. John closed the door and returned to the living room, trying not to think too much about it. But a few minutes later, the knock repeated, this time even louder. Once again, John approached the door and carefully inspected the surroundings. No one. Trying not to panic, he decided to check the windows and the back door. Everything was locked. When the knock sounded for the third time, John was genuinely scared. He grabbed a flashlight and decided to walk around the house outside. In the dark, the forest seemed even more eerie. John slowly walked the perimeter, shining his flashlight into the darkest corners. Suddenly, he noticed a shadow flitting behind the trees. John's heart began to race. He called out but heard only the sound of the wind in response. Suddenly, the flashlight started flickering and went out. John was left in complete darkness. Trying to stay calm, he returned to the house and tried to turn on the lights. Nothing happened. The electricity was out. Staying in the dark, John sat on the couch, trying to remain composed. Suddenly, he heard a quiet whisper coming from deep within the house. At first, he thought he was imagining things, but the whisper repeated, louder this time. John strained to listen and made out the words, "Help me." Quote. Barely suppressing his fear, John followed the sound. It led him to the basement, which had always seemed grim and scary to him. When John descended, he saw an old trunk he hadn't noticed before. The whisper was coming from inside. Mustered all his courage, John opened the trunk. Inside was an old doll and a diary. Opening it, John began to read. The diary belonged to a little girl who had lived in the house many years ago. She wrote about her fears and loneliness and how her parents left and never returned. When John finished reading the diary, he realized the girl, whose spirit lingered in the house, was simply seeking peace. He decided to bury the doll and the diary in the forest to set her free. The next day, John returned to the forest and chose a secluded spot. After burying the doll and the diary, he felt a sense of relief. As he walked back to the house, he noticed the atmosphere had changed. The house felt lighter and cozier. John returned to the city with a sense of accomplishment. He never felt fear in that house again. Each time he visited, he remembered that night and the little girl who finally found peace.